We are up to Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph by the two dots. Okay, so we were learning about this lottery that they had to draw to determine who will be the Zeichet for the first activity of the day, which is Trumas Hadesh, which is the nominal amount of ash they removed from the Bech and placed it on the east side by the ramp on the floor, and miraculously it was absorbed into the ground. Says the Gemara, so that eventually, for the reasons that we've already mentioned, they drew a lottery. And the first was a race, and had a lottery, and then we said that each person that sticks out one or two fingers, but we don't want the thumb to be put out there. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. What do you mean one or two fingers? If you tell me they can put out two fingers, then obviously they can put out one finger. So what do you have to tell me one or two? Taste already mentioned that sometimes we ask that question and sometimes we don't ask the question. But here we're asking, why mention one finger if you already said two fingers are sufficient? A healthy person should only put out one finger, but a sick person who finds it very difficult to stick out just one finger, and you cannot really control his fingers that much, so he puts out two fingers, and it's acceptable. That's later, yeah. Says the Gemara, Tanya.
He can't hold out one finger. And how's it going to be the avodah?
Says the Gemara, Tanya, what did we learn? Ain might see, and you do not produce loy shlish, not your middle finger, but like goydel and not your thumb, because the tricksters will realize that there's only like one or two people left, so they're going to extend the thumb. Now it says in the Farshim that how were they? All the kohanim were sort of huddled together. So you didn't really, all you saw is fingers. You didn't really see people. And therefore, a thumb and an index finger or a thumb is so distant that when you look at it, you think it's two different people. If people are huddled, somebody else's hand. So therefore, all other fingers are pretty close together, and you cannot trick anyone and show one finger without showing the other fingers. But a thumb, you can. So therefore, they banned thumbs or your middle finger because of those tricksters. But if you also produce your third finger, we will count it. So right now the Gemara thinks we're counted as two. We will count it. A second. Okay. Sorry. We'll count it as two. If what you just said before, we only allow one finger per person. Only a sick person is allowed two. And here it seems that we allow two as well. If there's two, we'll count it as well. Says the Gemara. Actually, I skipped a few lines. Sorry, we'll go back. I skipped a few lines. Start again. But Tanya, we learned. If you're telling me an individual or sick person, it says you only produce one finger, not two fingers. But a healthy person is only counted as one. But by a sick person, I feel and they can produce two fingers. Yechidin are those who are sick, but they're sitting on their own. They're separate from everybody else, so therefore nobody can make a mistake and count them as two. They have two or three fingers because you can clearly see that it's only one person. So Moitzi and Shtayim, they can produce two fingers, but even though they produce two fingers, we only count them as one. What do you mean?
They're so sick they have to sit in the chair by themselves.
Rashi said they're sitting on.
Just lining up to do the avodah.
That's a good question. He's determined, no matter how sick he is, he's determined that he wants to be. Remember, it's not a lot of work. It's just to go up there and you scoop one scoopful of ash. That's all it is. So anybody can do it. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be that healthy. And there's no rush in time. Remember, there's no rush. It's early hours in the morning. No other activities happen for a while. We'll see later. The He's lying. Rashi says actually he was lying. Rashi says over here, you're either sitting or lying. Rashi says, now the question is, if he's lying, he can't even sit. How the world is expected to get it up? Especially once we've associated with this avodah, putting all the wood on the mizbeach, Then how did it's one thing we only did the Super Sadash, but now that we did the Snake City and the Datsei Amaracha, how in the world is a sick person? Yeah, good question. That I don't know. Anyway, so what but then let's count as one. But Tanya, what we learned, so he said, look, only one, but Tanya, so right now we think that if the person puts out two fingers, he's counted as two. If he put out his thumb, not only won't we count him, he's disqualified, but we're actually going to give him patch. But Pekia, we're going to give him, I guess, give him Malchus with the Pekia, which is what that means. What do you call it? My money, what do you mean we count? Not me, we count as one person. We said that if he put out the third and second finger, it will still, we won't disqualify this claim from being counted, but don't worry, we could tell right away that it's one person because your middle finger and your index finger, not that far away from each other. So we can tell straight away. So a person is only counted as one, even if he puts out two fingers. But we don't want two fingers because then you have to focus more. But a thumb definitely is never counted, and we disqualify this claim from being part of the event. My Pekia, so you said before, if you put out a thumb, you give him Pekia. What's Pekia? My Madra, what's a Madra? The whip that these nomads use, the possigation, like a cat of nine tails. At the very tip of it, they used to smack the horse. The tip used to break out. They used to split into a number of straps. So actually, in a way, it hurts more. Instead of being hit with one strap, you're hitting with a few straps. So therefore, that's the punishment. Meiresh in the beginning, I thought this was Ben Beboy. He said When I was told that Ben Beboy's job was to take care of the Pekia, my first reaction was, I mean, a pshilta. He must be the wick maker. Yet now we learn from the rotten clothes or pants of the Kohanim. From the Gatlach, Mehen, what do you do with them? Mafkin, they would twist these, these wicks. And they use that as wicks for the candles. So I assume that's what Ben Beboy's job was. However, Kiva, the Shamana, Laho, the Tanya, once I heard what he said, not only that, that he gets Malchus with Pekia. I realized he wasn't getting Malchus a wick. I realize what it is. It's a description of a kind of a strap or whip that they use.
By the way, the Bach sort of deals with that issue that we had about
yeah. No. That's Yechidim. There's two things. The Gemara says Choyle or Yechidim. So it's bother the Bach. What's the difference between Choyle and Yechidim? Rashi learned that Yechidim means that they were sick and they were on their own, sitting or sleeping on their own. So how much chaylim? That's bothering the Bach. If they're both chaylim, what's the difference? So and if the chaylim can be so he says the chidim are kosher the rabbanon, but the chaylim are still there. But that's the second chaylim, not the first chaylim. That's how I understand the Bach. But it says chaylim or yechidim. What's the difference? But that's the second one. In the Bryce it says chaylim or yechidim. Who are the chaylim? Because the way in our Pasha Rashi, see, they're both talking about the same thing. Both talking about a chayla. So what are you two chaylim for? So he's saying that's right. The first chayla is Pasha Kipshurbe, a chayla, and the second chayla is the chacham. And the chaylim, because we had a thesis in Rosh Hashanah that all Rabbanim were sick, they had diarrhea, they had stomach problems, and remember Rebbe couldn't put on tefillin, Abaye couldn't put on tefillin, and so on. Okay, says the Gemara further. That's why though. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. They're both running up the cabbage, and one of them pushed up the other guy. He saw the other guy was catching up or actually going ahead. So he kicked a good copper, and the guy broke his leg. So as a result of that, they stopped it, and so on. I learned. In fact, there's another story. It was far worse. They're both equal. They were racing up the ramp. One of them rushed in the head right before the other guy. Not the guy who's falling behind, took a knife, and stabbed him in his heart. On the steps of the ulam. Ulam normally is translated as the antechamber of the Beis Hamikdash, but here Rashi says it means the ulas in the courtyard of the Ezras Noshim. But Amar Achenu Beis Yisrael. Shimon, listen. It says it says by the ground he found a corpse lying on the ground. All the judges come out and all the leaders come out. Who's responsible here? The city of the Azaris. Go they all start to cry. The Gemara will soon ask, how does Egla Rufa come here? Here we know exactly who the murderer was. Egla Rufa's only, but we don't know who the murderer is. Come back to see. But Aviv Shaltina came along, the father of the child, said, he found that his kid was still jumping, was still alive. This, my son, should you be kapara? My son is still alive. The knife didn't become tummy. Pull the knife out before it becomes tummy. Because when the Pasha dies, yeah, he's a mace. Pull the knife out before the thing. That making sure the kalim are pure is more important than them. Why did they say take the whole body out and you shouldn't have a mace in the azara? And the knife will come out with it. I guess there was not enough time to do that. If you pull the knife out right then and there, pull the body out will take a few minutes.
Listen, criticism of the see. Out there, it's more important to the Taras Kalim.
One second, says the Gemara, actually says in Pasik that the Gamdam Noki Shavach Menashe had been like, and the first base of it. Here was the second base of it. The first base of Menashe killed a lot of people. Add until Asher Mile as Yerushalayim Pelepeh. It's full from one end to the other end. It says he killed the leaders and it's like Mile Yerushalayim Pelepeh. But the idea was that murder was right. And therefore, Jewish blood had no meat, didn't matter at all. By Jews, forget about boys. So the two incidents happened. One was just breaking a leg, and one was stabbing. Sorry?
You do see there was shvichas damim in that time.
We know that. It says that the Sanhedrin shut down 40 years before because the fish not to Ratschim. We asked that when we learned our test. Because it says that the Sanhedrin called 40 years before because the shvichas damim was right. But rife in the same as me, there was nothing compared to how rife it was in the first base. And we used an achab as a raya. Which incident happened first? If this incident happened first, we stabbed him. So for that, you didn't introduce the lottery system. But then another story, we just broke a leg and said, "Oh, broke a leg. Oh, we have to have a system." The first what happened was they broke a leg. The key and they're and nothing, and they say, "Well, it's such a major incident." But when the second incident happened, when somebody got killed, that's it. We have to change the whole modus operandi. Says the Gemara, the key, but the kid paisa arba amas ma'vitayu the. But we learned the Gemara before. But when did they institute the lottery? When they broke a leg. That's the Mishnah. So when did this story happen? If it happened before, why didn't they introduce the lottery? It happened after. How did it happen? If we had a lottery, how did this story happen?
What's the meaning here of Arba Amas Maya?
How would they have a racing? What were racing if there was a race? They introduced the lottery system right after.
We said earlier that whoever came first into the Arba Amas.
Yeah, but when did the story happen?
Yeah, no,
okay.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The key when the piece I tell you, what happened was the murder happened first. Umikada suffered. They thought Ikrab Almud. This is an aberration. Even the Chazi, they saw that I feel in the Mela Asul Desekana, and I don't understand these 5 words. What do you mean Mela? The guy, the Mishnah says he deliberately broke the other guy's leg. How's that Mela? I don't know what it means if I feel the Mela Asul Desekana. It's a Kilabon Pais. Somehow or another, kicking the leg is a natural reaction. It's not like, it's not so evil. You didn't intend maybe to kick the leg. You intend to push him out of the way, and you broke his leg. Yeah, no, he deliberately pushed him. Yeah, he enough of he deliberately pushed him, but he didn't intend to hurt him. His intention, when you take a knife and you press somebody's heart, your intention is to hurt him. When you pushed him off, you just pushed him. It's a natural reaction. So in a way, that's called the mela also that's a sakana, because you didn't intend to make a sakana. You intended to push him away. He fell off and he broke his leg. So they decide, you know what, enough, because that's easy for people to do. Push the other guy away, shove the other guy, or trip him. You know how you usually go. You have a race. That's what you normally do. Make sure that you win. Yeah.
Just have this regard, just in the judgment of the race.
But the Mishnah's case was bedachas. It was deliberate, clearly. But he wasn't deliberate to break his leg. He was deliberate to push him out of the way. You see so many racing where people try to trip the other guy, put his foot out or something, trip. You have no intention to hurt the guy. You just want to stop him from running. So that's what it means. The mela, the mela goes on the sakana, not the mela goes on and that you pushed him. That you deliberately did.
In the course of the events, that's part of it.
So the Gemara says, so he got up and he said, anyway, so Shimo Hariyim says. First of all, ask question: does Yerushalayim being that roof? We had how much like before. If Yerushalayim is considered as a chalkul shvatim, or if it's chalkul shvatim, then you can have an egla rufa. But if loin is chalkul shvatim, then there's no egla rufa, because there's no egla rufa if loin is chalkul shvatim, because the din of egla rufa is only the city, an individual city, but not when Yerushalayim loin is chalkul shvatim.
What do you understand? In other words, the border goes through Yerushalayim something. So one side, the south side is one side.
Nobody owns it. No, remember we said you couldn't charge rent. There's no ownership. No, if line is how for the shvatim. If there is no border, no, that's it. Because this is the boundary for an area that belongs to everybody. That's what it is. Face already asked. So what's the problem? He followed up Yehuda. Hold yet this chalkul shvatim. Yehuda according to Shimon chalkul shvatim. So he says the purpose of all of this was just to get them to realize the gravity of the situation and make them cry. Because the whole thing, as Gemara will say in a minute, doesn't make sense. One of them is no egla rufa. The Gemara ain't a egla rufa. Furthermore, like we come to egla rufa over here. We know who committed the crime. See, over there by Egla rufa, we don't know who the murderer is. But we know Miyako. The purpose was that people should cry and be masped this child. I want you to say blue shot.
Here we know what happened. How to respond to this.
But it's not to the regular roof. Then we have a regular case of a murder. We know exactly how to respond. There's a murder over here. Punish it. Or don't punish it because there's no hasara. But I want you to say blue shot. He says that what Tzaddik was trying to say here is every person growing up has different influences. You have the parents, the influence at home. You have the yeshiva, the rabbeim, and then you have the wider community. When somebody turns out to be such a miscreant, who's responsible? Is it the yeshiva, the chinuch that he got from his friends in the yeshiva, or is it the entire community has a shoulder responsibility? And that's what he's saying. Amila havi kapora. Allah azoris, the kainim, the immediate kainim, his friends, his family, is that the one? And his rabbeim, or a kolair. Everybody in the community is responsible when you have somebody growing up in this particular way. Everyone has a shoulder responsibility. That's what he's trying to get them. And he made them cry because he made them all realize that everyone has a certain modicum of responsibility to make sure that the institutions are obviously that's designed. He was using that when it comes to a fundraising for issue. That everyone should, in the community is responsible. Okay.
Sometimes we say louder. Sometimes we delineate the responsibility very specifically.
Yeah.
What's the name? Bas Bilga.
Bilga Bas.
And we said, where did she learn this from? From the home. So we blocked up their.
Shusa the Yanuka. End of sukkah. Yeah. Something about further. Then you continue. The father came along, but obviously, the father is. You have to think about this father. Either he's an unbelievable strong character, or he has zero sensitivity. He found his kid still alive. My son will be your atonement for this for today. Let's take the knife out. It's more concerning to them that in the base of David's home there shouldn't be any tumor, and the kalim should remain tired rather than worry about the fact that a murder was just committed to this person's son. Now, the Gemara's question right now, I'm not sure exactly what the point is, but how do we understand it? Do we understand that Shvichas Damin Azal, that life was cheap? They're concerned about Taras Kalim was average, but life was cheap. Jewish blood was cheap. No, Jewish blood was not cheap. But Taras Kalim, they were so concerned about Taras Kalim. My nafkamina. Toshma coming here. The Gemara brings a pasuk to support it that life is cheap because the Menashe spilled so much blood. What's the Gemara trying to prove from that? That life is cheap. Jewish lives are cheap. They had respect for Taras Kalim. Nothing specific and nothing spectacular. That was normal. What the story brought out was how Jewish lives were cheap in the eyes of others.
That's a societal view
That's it. But what's
not the actual value, it's how the people
that's what we're talking about. So what's the point of this? What exactly is the point of this question and what's the point of this answer? We're trying to depict here, but we had enough tests that in the same base of mitzvahs were all right in Torah mitzvahs. The problem was only sin chinim. Here we're learning that Jewish lives don't matter for Jewish lives. Jews root to Jews. That's awful enough. You have to learn about sinas chinim, unless sinas chinim led to this kind of perspective on other people. Bilam went to Balak. It says in the Bilam went to Balak, and he started. Balak said, "Look, Am Yotzim and Mitzrayim, and so on. Let's curse them out. Let's destroy them." What do you have to start with? Who can you really come from? I'm hiring you. I want you to destroy this nation. How can you go ahead and destroy people? How do you destroy people? But if you look at them and say, with such disdain that they're second-class citizens, they're not human, they're subhuman, then you become a Nazi chas v'shalom. So because they had sinas chinim, because they had no respect for another person, and they looked at them as they were subhuman, therefore, life doesn't matter. And the tzichas is easy because shichas dam huzol.
To a generation like ours, where maintenance is so full, Koyanim doing a hoida in the mikdash, but we don't give it that. We're all worried about the Tara. It's very, very important, but we don't give it down about the person. Nobody cares. I don't know.
Maybe. Another spin. Tanabami learned. It says in Pasuk, okay, we're talking about the it says he should remove his clothes. The lavash begodim achedim. We're talking about when he does the big trumas hadeshin and the big pile of ashes. He removes his clothes and he puts on other clothes. The lavash begodim achedim. So he puts on other clothes and then he takes out the deshin to outside of the camp. We're talking about the big pile. Shomani, I would have thought, where else do you find that a kohen continues to remove clothes and change clothes? On Yom Kippur, the kohen gadol keeps changing from his 4 white clothes that he wears in the kodesh hagadashim to the golden 8 clothes that he wears outside. So I would have thought just like Yom Kippur, and we're going to learn Gemara like Rashi because other shayim don't learn Rashi. They will learn it just like the kohen gadol and Kippur keeps on changing the clothes. I would have thought that the kohen hedyot should take off the big day kodesh for this menial task or the meaning task of taking all these ashes outside of the Beis Hamikdash area completely. Maybe he should put on weekday clothes. Then Rashi, all the Shayim said, "What do you mean? The Kohen Gadol puts on weekday clothes. He puts on the 4 clothes of white clothes that both big day Kohen Gadol. Navas, this is avoided b'pnim and this is avoided b'chutz." So Rashi explains the Kohen Gadol has 2 sets of clothes. A Kohen Hedyot only has 1 set of clothes. So we would have thought that just like the Kohen Gadol, in a way, reduces it from 8 down to 4, from gold down to linen. So Kohen Hedyot, how does he diminish? How does he reduce his clothes from 4 big day Kohen to big day Chayil? So the comparison is not exactly accurate, but it's the concept. You go one exactly a downgrade. David Apostle says, as begoda v'lova begodim achedim. We're comparing the second clothes to the first clothes. That the clothes that he's donning has to be similar to the clothes that he just stripped himself off. Malahalabi the kodesh has to be Kohen's clothes. It can't be the kodesh. No, so others. What other clothes? The Kohen Hedyot only has 4 clothes, 4 different vestments that he puts on. Clothes that the quality is less than these ones here. Right? That can be rotten, whatever. Lesser quality clothes than the ones that he's wearing right now.
Is that because even though it's going in,
it's an avoider. It's like an avoider, but because he's dealing with the ashes, and we'll soon see, we already had before also, that the Kededa, Shemazah, Rabbi, you should be wearing, the same thing as serving. So he wears cheap clothes, not expensive. Still 4 clothes of clothing, but not expensive, cheaper materials.
The guy is working in the biggest Schlachthaus in the world. And we're not concerned. There's blood splashing everywhere. They have to wash the floor from it. We're not concerned about that. All we're worried is getting fashion on his clothes. He's wearing white linen when he's catching blood and spritzing blood on his feet.
Yeah, very careful. Only Pesach we had a problem. They were walking with up to the knee high in blood.
Nobody's worried about it there. Just
Okay.
A bit of ash on the clothes.
So they say it's a gnai for the king that the clothes you wear to remove the garbage should be the same clothes you give him his food, like a waiter. Says the Gemara. That's the Tanakhama. Rabbi Lezer no achedim. You know what it means achedim v'hoitzi. Says the pasuk put on other clothes v'hoitzi limid ala kohenim balimum. That's talking about the kohenim, not the clothes they're wearing. That other kohenim can go ahead and do this avodah. The balmum normally cannot do avodah. In other words, Rabbi Lezer holds it's not an avodah at all. Because avodah, how can you use a balmum? Taking out the deshin is totally not an avodah. You can have a balmum. And seeing the Tanakhama holds, but no, that it is a shtickle avodah, and a balmum can't do it. Only his can do it.
So if a balmum can do it,
yeah, it doesn't matter. You can't. Yeah, let's go analyze this. This is how Rashi takes it on. I've learned. He wears other clothes that are, I guess, a lesser quality. What's that all about? The same clothes you wore to cook food for your teacher. It's inappropriate that you should use it also to serve your master. Says okay, says Reish Lakish. The same machlekes they have regarding removing the deshin, whether Rabbi Lezer holds that it's not avoid at all, Balmum can do it, and Tanakama holds only a kohen can do it. And what does achedim mean? What kind of clothes he wears? The same machlekes is kach machlekes barama. The daily activity. See, this Hatzas Hadeshin is only whenever the pile was very large. Otherwise, throughout the year, they didn't do it. But there's a daily Trumas Hadeshin where you only took a scoopful. Over there, it's the same machlekes. Whether it's considered an avodah, whether a balmum can do it or not. According to Rabbi Lezer, balmum can do it because it's not an avodah, and according to Tanakama, balmum cannot do it. But Rabbi Yechon said, no, machlekes by itzah. When is the machlekes if it's considered avodah or not? There's only a tzas hadeshin. Avo b'harama, trumas hadeshin. Hakol avodah. Everyone holds an avodah. Balmum cannot do it. Only an active kohen can do it. My time with Reish Lakish. Why would Reish Lakish hold that it's not avodah? Amalach, he said, because Isal kedat chavodi. You can tell me it's an avodah, but the trumas hadeshin. Let me ask you a question. Yesh lach avodah sheksheda b'shnei kelim. All the pasuk says is he should put on a midday bad, u'michnasei bad. Only he puts on his shirt and he puts on his pants. What about the other two clothes? The hat, the hat doesn't mention it. Where do you find an avodah? We know a mechutz begadim is an avodah for a kohen to serve the Beis Hamikdash. The fact that we only allow two clothes is a raya that it's not an avodah. That's what his raya is. He yeshlach isag avodah yeshlach avodah kshem the. Where do you find an avodah that's sufficient to wear only two clothes, two vestments? Is a raya is not avodah.
So therefore, when he changes two garments, then he's the
No. That's Trumas Hadeshin. This is the Tzas Hadeshin. Who said the Tzas Hadeshin? Who said he was the same kohen? It wasn't. So what do you mean taking off? It's like normal kohen. It goes through. It takes off all his clothes and puts a big nechayil. Go in Tanakam, yeah.
Why does it
Only about Trumas Hadeshin we're talking about. Trumas Hadeshin says through the garment. Says it's like that. It's not avodah. It's not an avodah. Rabbi Yechon holds it is an avodah, and he holds that everybody agrees that Balmum cannot do it. The Torah revealed to us push on through clothes, and we already know what did we know that it can be mechusar begadim. The fact that you need these two clothes is it ayah that he needs to wear some of the clothes of a kohen. What's some of the clothes? Is it ayah he wears all the clothes of a kohen? So why did the Torah only mention these two? To teach you something else. So why did the Torah only mention these two? To teach you two other things. Number one is midayvad. Teach you in argument. Generally, when a kohen wears a shirt, the shirt has to be exactly a tunic has to be exactly his size. It can't be too long, dragging forward. Can't be too short. It has to be midoy. Has to be his measurement. Every kohen has their own measurement. So it's not a generic uniform. Every kohen had their uniform. Exactly. That's to be custom made. Kem midosai. It has to be exactly custom made. Number one, we wouldn't have known from anywhere else. That's what we need midday bad. And michnasei bad. What do you need a pants? Look at Tanya. It says in the pasuk. It says in the pasuk here. Because by michnasei bad it says yilbash al psari. Why does it have the word yilbash al psari? to tell you that's the first thing you put on you. Because if you put your shirt on first, you already have something else on your bus, and then you put your mechasayim on. So mechasayim is the first thing they put on. We actually had the money about sneeze. No, I know that there should be nothing before your pants. And then it says, that's what the pasuk is coming to tell you. But not that he only needs 2 vestments. It's an avodah, he needs 4. Ready more of a shlokish if he uses the pasuk to tell you that's not an avodah. So midday can be, and the Torah had to tell you these 2 because if it wouldn't tell you these 2, you automatically assume it's an avodah. You need all 4. The Torah dafka highlighted you put on 2 to tell you that it's not an avodah, and therefore you don't need all 4. Different balmum can do it. So according to the shlokish, how does he know these 2 dinim? So the shlokish said pasuk because those are the words used. Even though I'm using the fact that Torah told us these 2 to tell you that you don't need the 4 clothes, it's not an avodah, but the fact that you Torah use the word midoi measurement, and the fact that Torah says so it teaches you an argument that these are the 2 dinim that are learned. Kimidas and after because the Torah use the word midoi measurement. And the fact that nothing should be before your pants was most of upside. Says the Gemara, let us say ketanoi. Let us say there's actually a machlekes of tanoim. It says in the pasuk, "Al psarei matam leimer." What is it going to teach you? It says there by Tumas Hadesha. It says the pasuk is v'lavash hakoyin. He should put on, the midibad, and then it says v'michlebad yilbash al psarei. What do you say yilbash again? We just started off the pasuk. The koyin v'lavash hakoyin. The koyin should dress himself with a shirt, and it should have continued umichlebad al psarei. What does it say? Yilbash. It's extra, yeah. So what's v'lavash? And we right know what it means, yeah. So he says here, "Matam le'neva yilbash lahavi misnefes va'avid laharam." So it says the reason why it says yilbash again to tell you there's other clothes that you have to put on besides midday bad or michlasayim. There are other clothes that the michse bad. The other clothes you have to put on, and that's what the yilbash comes to tell you. And yilbash also the rest. They say says no. You know what says Yilbash? To tell you that he can put on special clothes. Which special clothes? The rabbi's big day koyin God will be Yom Kippurim. To tell you that the clothes that Yom Kippur wore one Yom Kippur, the clothes that the koyin God will one Yom Kippur. What do you do with this? We already had this in Shkol. What do you do with those clothes? So the pasuk v'nichem sham, and we had the Tanakama says that the Rebbe says that you put it away, Geniza. And the Rebbe says no. The koyin hedyet can wear those 4 vestments that the Kohen Gadol wore. Kohen Gadol, Kohen Hedyet can wear it. If somebody fits that size, yeah. So we see from here what? So that's when he uses the word Yilbash to tell you other clothes he can wear as well. That the rest of the year is kosher for Kohen Hedyet. And how do we know that? We learn that from the word. It says Yilbash. It says Yilbash by Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur. It says Yilbash over here. The extra word Yilbash to tell you that a Kohen Hedyet can wear the clothes of a Kohen Gadol. The pasuk says v'hinichem sham. You should put it away. It sounds like you should hide the geniza. He says v'hinichem sham is that the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to wear the same clothes next year. They put it down, but not that he should never be used again. The Yilbash, the Gzeder Shabbat, come and tell you that yes, you can use it. So the Gemara, Rebbe says straight. You don't have 2 problems of this. First of all, the Avnei. Remember they had this whole machlekes. Avnei she Kohen Gadol lo yizehu Avnei she Kohen Hedyet. First of all, it's a different gartel. Why? Because the Kohen Hedyet, I believe, wore klayim. Their gartel. Remember the gartel we had before. That the same gartel the Kohen Gadol wore, which was klayim, so too the Kohen Hedyet wore. But on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Hedyet was not, was boots, was made of just pure linen, was not made out of klayim. So therefore, the Kohen Hedyet cannot wear the 4 clothes of the Kohen Gadol because he needs to wear klayim. Knows Abdeisa, however, holds that no, the Kohen Hedyet also did not have klayim maholi. Remember, we had to make this. If the Kohen Hedyet wore klayim and not didn't wear klayim, this gartel. That's number 1. But that's one argument. But furthermore, the whole thing is reprehensible. If the Kohen Gadol wore this on Yom Kippur, the holiest day, you're gonna have a Kohen Hedyet outside working with the same clothes. It's like a Yerida. We have a rule, Mailim B'Kodesh, the same thing with clothes. According to Rebbe, what do we do with the extra word Yilbush? What did Yilbush come and tell you? So the Tanakh said Yilbush come and tell you that he should wear the 2 extra clothes. That's like a Yechan, that you should wear all the extra clothes. It's a full avodah, you need 4 clothes. But Rebbe says, the rabbis to tell you that he can also have shchakim. It doesn't have to be the finest quality, but even all, not only for Tumas Hadesha, but when we say Kohen Hedyet wears 4 clothes, if it's rubbed out, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's if it's wearing away. clothes. As long as he has 4 clothing, he can wear it. The rabbis of the shchotim, that's kosher for avodah. As long as it's not ripped. Worn away is not a problem as long as it's not ripped. Sure, yeah, it's not ideal, but we're saying that's what the pasuk tells you to be able to use it. And you should play. What does it say in the pasuk by the Kohen Gadol that he should place it there? So there's another machlekes. What the Kohen Gadol do with his clothes? According to the Tanakhama, nobody can wear it. But they says the ruyin hain Kohen hedged. Place it there for Kohen hedged can put it on. No, the Shitasa, he says that your Kohen hedged word Yilbash come tell you Kohen word. Since you Rabbi holds the word Yilbash to tell you that a Kohen hedged can wear these clothes of Kohen Gadol, what does he do with the fact that the Kohen Gadol should put it aside? That the Kohen Gadol shouldn't wear it yet. So my lab hakamifti. So this is the machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda and Abdeisa are arguing this very point. Rabbi Yehuda learns in the word Yilbash that these 2 clothes plus the other 2 clothes. Marsa avoidi, it's an avoida, and therefore a Balmum, for example, can't do the avoida of Trumas Hadeshin because he has to wear all 4 clothes. And what do you do with Yilbash? To tell you, it says over here, Rabbi Yehuda. Well, to tell you, Rabbi Yehuda says to bring out also the mitznefes and the avnik. Marsa Abdeisa holds lab avoidi. All you have to wear is 2 clothes. He doesn't talk about the extra clothes because he holds not avoida. Balmum can do it. So the machlekes of Yechon and Shlokish is the machlekes of the Rabbi Yehuda and Abdeisa. And the problem is, so what did he do? Amoraim arguing the same machlekes do tonight. It's a question. So the Gemara, I know, everyone will argue avoida. It is an avoida. The fact that Yehuda says you need 4 clothes, definitely it's an avoida. So let's say that Abdeisa also agrees it's an avoida, just like Rabbi Yechon, and the Balmum cannot do it. So what's the machlekes? So whether we use it, the Yilbash will tell you wear all 4 clothes, or the Yilbash will tell you that a Kohen Hegi can wear the clothes of a Kohen Gadol. The Hacha B'Hakamifti. Marsava Rabbi Yehuda holds Tzrichakra L'Rebuye. We would have thought that Trumas Hadeshin is not really an avodah; it's only a preparation. So the pasuk has to tell you Yilbash. No. I'm telling you 2 clothes to teach you those didn't, but learn also the extra clothes. I need to tell you. I need to inform you that's considered an avodah. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. I no longer have an extra word for Gzei Shabbat. But Abdeisa says no. I automatically know it's an avodah, and therefore the Kohen has to wear 4 clothes. Why does it say Yilbash again? To teach your Gzei Shabbat that the Kohen Hegi can wear the clothes of the Kohen Gadol that he wore in the avodah on Yom Kippur. Okay, we'll stop over here and continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you.